Okay, so right now we have our game working fine so far, but it would be cool if we had an option to pause the game whenever we wanted to. So we could create a pause button in here so that the player or the user can pause the game when he wants to. Okay, so to do this, we need to first go to our canvas and right click in our canvas and select UI. We're gonna select button, and the button comes with a text with a default, so we're gonna delete the text and we're gonna call our button pause button. So pause btn. So we have to give a sprite to this button or an image. So let's select the source image here in the inspector, and we'll select this pause button over here. Set native size of the pause button and resize the pause button. So move it a little bit. Let's see if I can actually see it in the canvas. Okay, here it is. We're gonna move it up and then we're gonna rescale it. So press T and resize it. We're gonna make it nice and big, like this. Maybe that's a little bit too big, but so let's press T and make it a little bit smaller, like that. All right, let's place it over here. And now what we're going to do is that we're going to set an anchor point to this for this image. We haven't set anchor points for the other images because they are mostly centered. But if you select the pause button and you go here in inspector and you click here where you can see this red cross, you click here, you can see that it's centered to the center of the screen. It's anchored to the center of the screen. This means that the position of the button will be relative to the center of the screen, no matter how big or how small the screen size is. But we want to actually set the anchor to the top left corner. So let's just click here, and now you can see that in here we can see the anchor, and this object has this anchor. So right now if we move this game object, it would always be referenced to this position, to this point over here. And this is good because if the screen size gets smaller, then the pause button will reposition itself, but it will never get off screen. Okay, so now that we have our pause button, we need some behavior for our pause button. So let's go to our project and let's go to our scripts folder and let's right click and create a new C# script. I'm gonna call this C# script pause, and then I'm gonna open the C# script, and inside the C# script we're gonna delete everything, and in here we're gonna check if the game is paused, and if the game is paused, then we're gonna unpause it, and if the game is not paused, then we're gonna pause the game. So that's a new state. We could say that the paused game is a new state. So let's go to game manager, and here where it says game states, this is our section. We're gonna create a new state for the game. So public static, we create a static variable of type bool, and we call this variable game is paused. Okay, so at the start of the game is paused is gonna be equal to false, and if we pause the game, then it will be equal to true. So we're gonna check in our pause script, we're gonna check if this is false or true. Okay, so let's go to our pause script, and in here we're gonna check, we're going to say if game manager dot game is paused, and let's see why it's not working. Okay, let me equals false. Okay, it says that it doesn't exist. Game manager dot game is paused equals. Okay, so the reason why we cannot access the variable is because we're not inside a method. Okay, so we need to create a method. So we're gonna call this method public void on pause game. So when the game is paused, now we're gonna check if. So when we call this method, we're going to check if game manager dot game is paused equals false. So if it's equal to false, then what we're going to do is that we're going to pause the game. So we're going to say time dot timescale is equal to false. This is okay, so not to false but to 0. Okay, this is better. So time.timescale is a way to make slow motion effects, and if we set timescale to 0, that means that the game is gonna freeze, and if we set timescale to 1, then it means that the game is gonna run at normal speed. So now we're gonna say else. So if the game is paused, then we want to run the game again. So time.timescale, we want to continue the game, is equal to 1. Alright, but this is not the only thing we want to do. If we press the pause button, we actually also want to change the sprite of the pause button. So the pause button has this sprite. If we zoom in here, you can see that it has this sprite, but we can change it to another sprite, to the play. We can change it to the button with the play drawing, so the user knows that the game is paused and that it has to hit the button again to play it. Okay, so here in the pause script, what we're going to do is that we're going to create a reference to the image component of the pause button. So if you select the pause button, you can see that it has an image component. So inside the pause script, we're gonna create a reference. So image like this. So you can see that we have an error, and it's because we don't have the library UI. So we need to type in using Unity Engine .ui like that, and now we don't have any errors. Okay, so in the start method, so let's create the start method again. In the start method, we have to set image equal to get component image like this. And now that we have a reference to the image component, we can actually when we pause the game, we can say image.sprite is equal to play sprite, and if we resume the game, we can say image.sprite is equal to pause sprite. Okay, and you can see that we have red lines. That's because there is an error, there are mistakes, and the mistake is that we haven't defined post sprite and play sprite. So we're gonna create some references, some public references. So here you can type in references, and in here we're just gonna say public sprite play sprite like this, and public sprite post sprite. Okay, so now we don't have any errors. We need to set the references from the inspector to both sprites, and we don't need to set a reference to this one because this is not public, and this one is an internal reference, so we get it in the start method. All right, so I think everything is set. Let's go back to the Unity editor, and now don't forget to attach the pause script to the pause button. So add script, pause script, and now you can see that it's waiting for both references. So click here, and the play sprite is gonna be this sprite, this play sprite over here, and the pause sprite is going to be the post sprite. Okay, perfect. So now the only thing that we need to do is that we need to make sure that we have the pause button selected, and here in the on click we need to press the plus sign, and we have to pass in an object. In this case, we want the method that is in the pause script, so we're going to pass the pause button object to the on click method, and in here we're going to select pause, the pause script, and then we have to select on pause button and we don't see it, I think, and it's because or we should see it because we made it public. Okay, so I made sure we made it public. So if we select this, okay, so we have to select pause on pause game. Yeah, I think that's it, on pause game. Okay, so if we select, make sure that pause on pause game is selected, click save, and we play the game, we can see that if we press the button, everything stops, the sprite changes to the play one, to the play sprite, and now if we hit the play, it should work. Okay, so the reason why it's not working is because we're not changing the value of game is paused. We need to change the value of game is paused to true. So if we play this, we have to do all of this, and then we have to say game is paused. So game manager dot game is paused is equal to true. And if the game is paused, then when we unpause the game or when we resume the game, we have to say game manager dot game is paused is equal to false, like this. Okay, so now if we play our game, okay, we can see that we can pause the game and we can play the game again. But there is one problem, and the problem is that when we play the game again, so when we pause the game, everything is fine. But if we play the game again, the bird jumps. Look at this. The bird jumps, and we don't want the bird to jump. So let's go to Visual Studio. Let's go to the bird script. Let's go to when the bird jumps. So the bird jumps every time we tap the screen. So we only want the bird to jump if game over is equal to false, and game manager dot game is paused is equal to false. So if the game is paused, we don't want to jump. We only want to jump if the game is not paused. All right. So now we can go back to Unity, press play, and we can see that if we pause the game and we now press play, let's do it again. Okay, I think it is working fine. Yeah, okay, it's working fine. So we only want to jump if game is paused is equal to false. If game is paused is equal to true, we don't want to jump. Alright, so we have that set. The only thing that we want to tweak a little bit is that the pause button appears here in the beginning of the game, and we don't want this to happen. We only want the pause button to be available once we tap the first time. So to do this, we're going to select our pause button. We're going to set it inactive, and we're going to create a reference in our game manager script. So in our game manager, we're going to create a reference to the pause button. So public game object pause button, and when we start the game, we want to say that pause button dot set active equals true. And when the game is over, we want to set our pause button dot set active to false. Okay, now let's go back to the Unity editor, and we'll select the game manager object and make the reference of the pause button. So let's set this reference. Let's drag the pause button to the field, and now we press play. We can see that the pause button appears when we start the game, and when the game is over, it should disappear. All right, perfect. So everything works fine. This is gonna be it for this video. I'll see you in the next video.